My name is Chris Hecker, and I'm an indie game developer now. I used to work at Maxis. I was laid off from Maxis, but it was okay because I was going to quit anyway and do indie games. The indie game industry nowadays is kind of rich and vibrant. So I'm working on a game called Spy Party, which is a kind of asymmetric multiplayer game. And right after I was laid off, I said yes to a whole bunch of lecture invitations. And so I'm here at Montreal. I just gave a keynote, the closing keynote for the conference about whether games are a truly mass market medium, kind of along in the same way that the film and literature and music are. No, in my opinion, it's not, but we have the potential to be, and I think that we need to become that. For a whole bunch of reasons, some financial. I think there's a much larger market out there than we're currently hitting, so we can make more money, which I think is not a very good reason to do much of anything. But then philosophically, I think that we kind of have a responsibility. We're handed this new art form with this key differentiating factor, interactivity, that's different from the way any other art form works, and we sort of, as the people kind of shepherding that through, we kind of have a responsibility to humanity to actually like kind of figure out how to make that work. If we just keep doing the same thing over and over again, like we're kind of like wasting the opportunity. I mean, how often does a new art form come along? You know, like film was last century, but like before that, it was a couple of hundreds of years. You know, and so I think there's a whole bunch of reasons that we should become a mass market, a true mass market, deep and wide art form, but we're not there yet. We kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again, kind of the way comic books did, and comic books kind of failed to become that. Which is a shame, because comic books are beautiful art form in themselves, and there are plenty of amazing examples of great art in comics. And I don't mean art meaning like the drawings necessarily. I mean the work, as a work of art. So the thing that indies can do, and I think that, so let me be clear, I don't think that only indies should attack this problem. I think the mainstream game industry has to pay attention to this problem because they have so much more money and leverage, and they can actually like do something about it. That said, indies have way less risk aversion. I mean, when you're only spending $20,000 or $100,000 on a game, and you're just going to go get a job afterwards if it flops, like it's not a big deal. You can try newer and experimental things. Whereas when you've got a $50 million game, somebody wants their money back, and they want to be sure they're going to get their money back, so they're conservative in terms of what they're going to invest in. So I think that you're seeing a lot of the kind of innovation and stuff and kind of crazy experimentation coming from the indie scene. But I think it needs to actually start happening in the mainstream game industry as well, because I think the indies can't do it by themselves. The reach is so different. I mean, it's orders of magnitude in terms of unit sales and things like that. And so, to get these games like Uncharted or Call of Duty that come out and sell millions of copies, and just small little decisions differently made could make a big difference and could help us try and figure out how games can be meaningful to people. I think that like I said, I think we are already an art form and games are already art, but the question is, do they speak to people at an emotional level deeper than the normal power fantasy? We're very good at power fantasy, right? And that's a fun emotion to have. It feels great to shoot zombies in Left 4 Dead. I love that game, but it's a little bit hollow. It's a little vacuous after a while. There's only so many zombies you can kill, and so many orcs you can kill, and spaceships you can blow up, and and terrorists you can hunt down. After a while, you might want to fall in love, or you might want to build something, or you want to, there's all of these things that we don't provide any access to. And I think the problem is we don't actually know how to provide access. It's very hard, and that's where the risk aversion comes in. I think most games have little snippets of things that they're trying to do that are interesting. Like, for example, the newest Call of Duty has this level where you play as a terrorist. The problem is, they don't really give you any choice in this level. You have to shoot civilians. You can't shoot the other bad guy terrorists and express yourself that way, because that would mess up their story. They're trying to tell you a story. And so it's kind of like, it's kind of a missed opportunity for actually like growth of the form, where they're trying this controversial thing, and I don't mind controversy, and they're trying to do something different, but at the same time they're kind of like writing a check they can't cash, right? They don't want to mess up their story, so they don't let you actually explore the ramifications. They put a gun in your hand and they put you in a situation where the choice you would make as a rational, good human being would be actually to shoot the bad guys, not the good guys, and not the civilians, but they don't let you do that. And so it's not really interactive at that level. It's not like they're not really leveraging the true interactivity of the situation. They're kind of just making you page through their story. And so it's kind of a shame. So like there's little snippets of things where you're like, oh, they could have done that a little differently. And it would make it harder. It's a harder game to make. There's no question. But at the same time, I think it'd become more meaningful, you know, or at least try. We need to figure out how to do this. We're going to fail. I mean, Einstein said it wouldn't, if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research. Like, you know, we don't know how we're doing this, but if we don't do this, we're going to end up, I think, ghettoized. Well, I think the risk aversion comes because it's so expensive to make games. Once we make a game of a certain level of polish, it's hard to make games that are less polished than that going on, and so it's just this ratchet, you know. I don't know what the word in French is, but like it just keeps ratcheting up, and you can't ever go back down. And so the risk aversion comes because now it costs $25 million or $50 million to make a game, and that's a lot of money. Like, I mean, there's no question that's a lot of money, and so those people who are paying that much money want their money back, you know. Whereas when it's $100,000, or games were a lot cheaper to make, like a lot of these indie games that you see these kids making, they're obviously made with a couple $1,000s, or, you know, ramen noodles. Like, there's much less to lose if you screw it up, and we're going to screw it up because it is research. We don't know what we're doing. So the risk aversion is this normal. I mean, Hollywood is incredibly risk averse, right? But even they try more stuff than we do, although they have a framework for doing that. They know how much movies cost. They have some predictability there. We're still like flailing around on the production end as well. But I think it's more just an attitudinal thing. We need to actually say, okay, from a strategic standpoint for our industry and our art form, we need to start investing in some of this, you know, these risky things. I mean, for example, you see like a lot of these publicly traded game companies like Electronic Arts or whatever, they publish their R&D budgets as a percentage of revenues, but almost all of those R&D budgets is in the D side. It's development, it's not research, right? And there's not a lot of game design research going on, a lot of experimentation. I mean, there is in the indie scene nowadays and some of these, you know, these art game scene. But it's not fed back into the industry very well. Oh yeah, I'm totally optimistic. I mean, I actually think that, I mean, it sounds pretentious, but I think that games will become the preeminent art form of the 21st century. So that's very optimistic, but I see a path where we could screw it up. I see, you know, I see multiple paths where we could screw it up, and so we need to work hard to make sure that happens. So I'm totally optimistic, but at the same time, I can see the dangers. It's fraught with peril. So we need to work really hard to make it work.